Okay, so we shall begin. Today we are looking at the formula for writing an essay in IELTS writing test, task 2. Just for a recap, in writing tests, there are 2 tasks that you will take on, task 1 and task 2. Task 1, for someone that wants to apply for either PR or for job, is letter writing. If your intent or intention for writing the IELTS test is to submit an application for job or to process a PR for maybe in Canada, for instance, your task 1 would be letter writing. But if it is task 2, whether you are writing for study application, that's to study abroad, or you're writing for job or for PR, your task 2 for everyone is called essay writing. And just for your own record too, task 1 requires you to spend 20 minutes, while task 2 requires you to spend 40 minutes. In task 1, you are expected to write a minimum of 150 words, minimum. You can write above 150, but please do not write below. You will be losing mark. Then in essay writing, you are required to have or write a minimum of 250 words. 250 words. You shouldn't write less than 250, but you can write more. All right, so today we shall be looking at the formula for writing an essay. Formula for writing an essay. And on the board, we have the formula which has its basis on P1, P2, P3, and P4. So for the formula for writing an essay, all you need to say, if I ask you for the formula, all you need to tell me is P1, P2, P3, and P4. That's the formula. Now, this simply means your essay is supposed to have 4 paragraphs. Each P represents paragraph. So you're expected to have 4 standard paragraphs. Now, when we were learning about the prerequisites or the yardsticks for evaluating your essays and other things that examiners look out for, one of the 4 yardsticks we learned about is task achievement. Can you remember? Under task achievement, you are supposed to ensure you respond to the question completely and correctly following the standard yardstick. So here is the standard yardstick. So the standard is that you should have 4 paragraphs. Do not write less than 4. Don't write more than 4. Now, the first paragraph of your essay can be referred to as introduction. The introductory paragraph. It is the engine house of your essay, the engine room of your essay. It is the skeletal framework of your essay. It is the roadmap of your essay. It is more or less like the blueprint of your essay. If you get this paragraph 1 well done, if you treat and have a carefully structured paragraph 1, any examiner that's marking your script can predict the remaining part of your essay. So please, always try as much as possible to understand how best to structure and tackle your paragraph 1. Because when you get the paragraph 1 well done, you have solved the entire essay by 50%. Just by getting this paragraph 1 well done. You have solved these other ones by 50%. Right? Now, let's understand the constituents or features or composition of the first paragraph. Your first paragraph should have about 3 to 4 things. Your first paragraph must have about 3 to 4 features in it. So what are these 4 components of your first paragraph? First thing you have to do in your first paragraph is what we call paraphrase. You must have a paraphrase. And what's this paraphrase? The paraphrase is simply about you copying the question that's on the question paper onto your answer sheet. And that is the beginning of that first paragraph. But you do not copy that question word for word. No. You don't have to copy the question verbatim. You are to paraphrase the question. This is why the first thing that begins your P1 is paraphrase. That is copying the question in a rephrased way. Then, after the paraphrase, you may want to have what we call preamble. A preamble. What is a preamble? This is a little synopsis or preview or insight of the question or the issues raised in the question. So your ability to give an overview of the issue or matter raised in the question becomes your preamble. In preamble, you do not give your personal take on the question. Rather, you raise the general understanding and knowledge of whatever it is that the question is talking about. So if there are 2 concerns raised in the question, your preamble should cover those concerns raised without taking side. So the preamble is more or less like a show-off to the examiner, establishing the impression that you have a clear understanding of the concerns raised. That's what preamble does for you. With your preamble, an examiner can actually predict your level of intelligence and understanding of the issue raised in the question. So after the preamble, you then go into what we call the thesis or the background statement. You are to make a thesis or background statement. Now, what is this thesis or background statement? It is a statement you make in writing that confirms to the examiner what you plan to do about the essay. The thesis or background statement is a written statement that confirms to the examiner what you intend, what you will be doing in the essay. Perhaps the path you would like to go for. For instance, if the question says, do you agree or disagree, and give your own opinion. So your thesis or background statement would confirm to the examiner that you will or you would be writing in agreement, or you'll be writing to disagree with the concern raised. If the question says discuss both sides of the question, your thesis or background statement would definitely establish that your essay will be aimed at discussing lucidly the concerns raised. If a question says, to what extent do you agree with the issue raised? Your thesis or background statement should clearly establish that your essay will be writing to vividly discuss the concerns raised. If it says to what extent, you are saying your essay would be discussing or establishing your point either in absolute agreement or with partial agreement. Because it says to what extent. To what extent means in a scale of 1 to 10. What is your take with regards to the issue raised in the question? So if you feel you want to completely agree, then your thesis or background statement should establish that in this essay, I would be writing to totally agree with the issue raised above. Then, if you do not completely agree with the issue, that means you have a partial agreement. Because once a question says, to what extent do you agree, you must have to agree first and foremost. So it is either you agree completely or you agree partially. But the fact is, you must agree. Right? So if you want to agree completely, your thesis or background statement should emphasize on the fact that in this essay, I would be writing to completely or totally agree. If it is partial, you establish that in this essay, I will be writing to agree with the issue raised above to an extent. That means you would agree and disagree. Some questions may say, why do they do so and what are the benefits? Why do they do so? What are the benefits? So your thesis or background statement must establish that in this essay, I would be writing to clearly state reasons people engage in such acts, as well as highlight their possible benefits. Now, you want to really understand that thesis or background statement does not end with a full stop. It ends with semicolon. Your thesis or background statement does or should not end with a full stop, rather with a semicolon. That is a comma and a dot on it. Now, the reason for that is to enable you proceed, to enable you continue on the same line with in the same sentence. And what are you continuing with? You are proceeding to bringing in your stance. Stance could be your view or your opinion or suggestion or merit or demerit, advantage or disadvantage, depending on the question. If the question says, do the advantage or do the merit outweigh the demerit? That means you are to establish whether or not the merits outweigh the demerit or they are at par with each other. If you are required to establish your own opinion, that means your stance is about your own opinion. So, your paragraph 1 is the engine room of your essay. A lot of experts, IELTS experts, tutors will say paragraph 1 is an introductory paragraph. So it gives a clear vision or insight about what you will be doing. But before we proceed to the remaining paragraphs, I need you to understand that before you begin to establish a background statement or thesis statement, please, you must, as a matter of necessity, draft out your points. Before you, after paraphrasing the question and stating or giving your preamble, before you make a background or thesis statement, you should draft your points on your question paper as rough work. Don't just look at a question and your mind tells you, I think it's better to go for this path. And you go and make a thesis statement. You might be shocked that after making that thesis statement, a lot of things may begin to go on in your mind. And you begin to have a little bit of confusion whether, should I go back to this one? Should I do this one? Or, because you feel you are convinced that you have better points for this path, you might generate the first point and discuss it in detail and cite an example for it. But the second point may be a repeat of that first point in a diverse way. You know, there are ways people write one point in different ways. To you, you are convinced, I really dealt with this. I'm super convinced that this is my A game. But to the examiner, you have just discussed one point, so you're going to be marked as 1 point. But if you take out 3 to 4 minutes to actually plan your points, when you begin to raise or when you begin to expatiate on your points, when you begin to give details of your points, you would have nothing to think about because you have already done the thinking. And once you have drafted out your points, you are convinced beyond doubt that your essay will be channeled towards those areas the points are for. All right, so after that, you then go to your stance and establish it. Now, once you're done planning or drafting out your points, each point you draft out, please ensure you have an example attached to it. When you draft out the point, put an example that you feel is best to buttress it. Put it beside it. So each point you draft out should have an example attached beside it. And when you do that, when you raise a point and attach an example to it, you already know what the whole thing of that paragraph would look like. You already know what your example is going to be. You don't have to spend any minutes thinking of what to write. It's already planned out. Now, after drafting out the points and attaching the example, you now establish your opinion, whatever it is your stance needs. You establish that opinion or that stance clearly on the question paper as rough work. Now, once you're done doing all of those planning, you go back to your answer sheet. Let me see whether or not you are following. When you go back to your answer sheet to continue, imaginarily, what was the last thing that was written on the answer sheet? When you go back to your answer sheet after planning your essay, imaginarily, what is the last thing you did on your answer sheet?
In your answer sheet, you took your stance. You either agree or you disagree with the topic of discussion.
Thank you, ma'am. According to what we are trying to achieve, we left our answer sheet to our question paper to actually plan out our points. So, in your own opinion, after planning out your points, drafting out the points, attaching an example to each, and also drafting out your own opinion in clear terms, you now need to go back to your answer sheet to continue from where you stopped. Imaginarily, what was the last thing we have done on the answer sheet?
Well, it would be that confirming my stand on the question raised.
All right, thank you so much. No. Let me explain to us. When we started on the answer sheet, the first thing that was done was a paraphrase. That's copying the question onto the answer sheet in a rephrased way. Is that correct? After that, the next thing we did was to write a preamble. So it was after that preamble that for you to make your thesis statement, you now need to go and plan your points. So the last thing that was done on the question, on the answer sheet was what? Preamble. So at this point, after planning your essays, you now want to go back to your answer sheet to continue from where you stopped, which was the preamble. So you are required to continue on the same line after the preamble. After paraphrasing the question, your preamble should continue from where the full stop of that copied, paraphrased question is. Don't go under to the next line when you have a space to continue. Remember, you're still treating paragraph 1. Please, I hope this is clear. Is it clear? When you paraphrase the question on your answer sheet, full stop. Your preamble should continue after the full stop. After your preamble, go and plan your essay. And once you're done planning everything, you need to go back to your answer sheet to continue. To continue on the answer sheet, pick up from where you stopped after the preamble. That means wherever you have your full stop after preamble is where you are to proceed or begin from. Do you understand this? Now, once you have established your thesis or background statement, which ends with semicolon, you then bring in your stance, which is the opinion you have written clearly on the question paper as rough work. And at this point, you are done with paragraph 1. Madam, do you understand this? Do you understand this?
To some extent, but you said after the preamble,
Mm-hmm.
then you go to the background statement.
After your
The
preamble?
preamble defines the thesis and the background statement.
No. Preamble is more like a little insight, a little preview, a synopsis of whatever issue that has been raised in the question. If a question is saying, should governors of a state be allowed to exercise their democratic power to ensure a good governance and better welfare of their people, or should there be should they be submissive to the overall head of the country? Then your preamble will go like, in a democratically elected regime or in a democratic country, leaders of a particular country are usually elected, and by so doing, they are given guidelines on how to go about their leadership through the provisions of the Constitution. As a matter of fact, governors are more like the president of their own state, as they are usually considered as the number one citizen of their state. By implication, they should be allowed to exercise their democratic power and constitutional powers, as far as they are not constituting tyranny, right? As far as the welfare and standard of the people are being achieved, as far as there are lots of developmental achievements, as far as there is peace, protection, and security of lives and property. So all of these, that's your preamble about the issue. Do you understand this? Then after that, full stop. Thesis or background statement is synonymous with manifesto. Do we know what manifesto is? Do we know what a manifesto is? Manifesto. Manifestos are usually being given by politicians at the point or during their campaigns. They usually go before the supporters and begin to say things they would like to achieve if voted into power. So you hear some people say, my wonderful people of the United States of America, I can assure you, if I'm elected into power in 2025, I will ensure that all the Democrats are given the veto power. I will ensure that there is peace and stability in the country. I will ensure that the standard of welfare of people are okay. You know, these are their manifesto. These are things they would like to achieve. Now, in IELTS, in essay writing, your manifesto is the thesis or background statement. How does that work? This is where you tell the examiner what you have planned to do. And this is why it is necessary to first and foremost draft out your points, so you know what to say to the examiner. You know what to write as your thesis statement. Right? So that's what you should take home. So after the thesis or background statement being written on your answer sheet, it should not end with a full stop. You should bring in semicolon, so that you would launch your stance immediately after that. Your stance could be your view or opinion. It could be your suggestion. It could be merit, demerit, advantage, or disadvantage, depending on the question. So after that, that will be the end of your paragraph 1. Now, getting your paragraph 1 well done solves the whole of your P2, P3, and P4 by 50%. How does that work? All right, so when you draft out the points as rough work on your question paper before you proceed to your thesis statement, remember I said each point you draft out should have what? An example attached to it. So when you drafted the points, you attached example to them. And you also established your stance, the opinion, right? Your paragraphs 2 and 3 have the same thread, the same approach. Now, what is this approach, rather? Your paragraphs 2 and 3, you are expected to bring in your topic sentence, TS, topic sentence. So what's this topic sentence? Your topic sentence is the point you drafted down on your question paper as rough work. Your topic sentence is the point you drafted down on your question paper as rough work. That's your topic sentence. Now, when you pick one of the points you drafted on your question paper as rough work, you go to initiate your paragraph 2. It is the point you drafted down on your question paper as rough work. That would become your topic sentence. So that first point will be used for paragraph 2. Now, when you write the topic sentence, you begin to explain it in detail. So the art of explaining that topic in detail would constitute your body paragraph. Please, do you understand this? The art of developing your topic sentence, giving detailed explanation of it, constitutes your body paragraph. Now, there is something you want to understand about body paragraph. Do not limit it to spellings all through. Your essay is supposed to be fact-like. You know what fact-like is? It should be like a make-believe idea. It should be something that when the examiner is reading it, they feel this person is hitting a lot of points. This person is very exposed about this. Now, those facts may not be real facts. They can be fictional ideas. It's just like reading a novel. The novels we read, or you read, for those that still read novels, are not always true life stories. Some of them are just fictional. But when you read them, they put you in the picture of such scenario, and you begin to feel they are actually real. So in your body paragraph, bring in facts. Now, what can these facts be? Bring in dates, which you'd have to write by bringing in number and the month spelled in full, like 24th September. You spell September, but 24 should be written 2 and 4, right? So you bring in dates, bring in the year. The year has to be in figure 2, right? maybe 1948, as an instance. So when you bring in such scenarios, you also want to bring in location. Location where something ought to have been experienced or witnessed or recorded. So bring in location, bring in quantity. How many people were involved? How many people were involved? Bring in a budget, maybe the financial implication. How much was expended? Bring in key players, the names of the key players. Names of the key players. If there are consequences, mention consequences. If there are benefits, bring in the benefits. These are things that will make your essay to be fact-like. So when an examiner reads your essay, they get into the picture of your explanations, and they have the impression that you actually have a lot of information here. Don't just base your explanation in spelling stuff through. Percentage. What's the percentage of people out of the 400 people that were affected? What is the percentage of the people who recovered or who benefited? So out of 400, you can factor that 60% of these people were affected, although with the emergency treatments, out of the 60%, over 80% of them recovered in less than 3 weeks, while the remaining 20% took a lot more time. Meanwhile, 40% of the 400 persons managed to treat themselves before they got struck by the ailment. So you really need to bring in information in your body paragraph. Then after all of those explanations, you then cite an example. Bring in an example. Your example can be true life examples. Your example can also be fictional example. So you create something that would buttress all the explanations you have made in your body paragraph. So cite an example that buttresses what you have established. So that example may be true life example. It may also be a fictional one. IELTS is not so bothered about that. Okay, now you go to your paragraph 3. In your third paragraph, you need to go and pick up the second point you drafted down on your question paper as well. Can you remember? You had 2 points drafted down, right? The first one is to be used in paragraph 2 and explained, an example attached. Of course, that example is the one you have already attached to it, right? The second point comes to paragraph 3. Then that becomes your topic sentence, paragraph 3. Then you begin to expatiate on it. And when you expatiate on it, remember to bring in facts, figures, locations, key players, number of people, financial implications, benefits or disadvantages. Then you cite an example to buttress what you have written. Cite an example to buttress what you have written. So at the end of that, your paragraph 4 is just about conclusion. So you conclude all you have written. After your conclusion, your stance will be brought down. Now, this stance is already established in your paragraph 1. Don't forget that. Remember, I said stance could be your opinion, your view, your suggestion, merit or demerit, right? So whatever it is you have written in paragraph 1 as your stance, you are bringing it down to paragraph 4. But when you're bringing it down, do not copy it verbatim. Do not copy it word for word. You are to bring down your stance in a rephrased manner, retaining the same idea you had established in paragraph 1. And at this point, your essay is completed. So what you need to do next is proofread all you have written. Make corrections where necessary. This is how your essay should go. But I have a little caution. My little caution is due to time constraint, you may not be able to proofread the whole of your essay from paragraph 1 to 4. You may not be able to do that because of time, right? But no matter what happens on the day of your essay or writing test, please ensure that you proofread your paragraphs 1 and 2. Ensure you take your time to proofread. When you are proofreading, do not use your eyes alone to go through what you have written. You can do finger pointing. The reason for that is so you don't omit those root words. Is, a, they, to. Because when they're not there, what you are writing will not make a lot of sense. So you want to use your finger, take the reading by finger pointing, one each word, and you are going fast. So that would help you to also know when something is missing. So ensure you proofread the first paragraph. Ensure you proofread the second paragraph. If there's no more time, you can submit. But if you have time, continue to proofread the remaining paragraphs. Another thing, another caution you want to take home is no matter what on the day of your test, no matter what, try to ensure that you have 4 paragraphs established on your answer sheet. Look at some scenarios. Okay, let me give just a scenario. You might be taking on your essay test, and then you would hear you have 5 minutes more. Perhaps you are treating paragraph 3, and here you have 5 minutes more. And out of these 5 minutes, you must proofread your essay, right? Quickly leave that paragraph 3 that you're already treating. Go and establish a 4th paragraph. Because your essay must have 4 paragraphs. It is sacrosanct. So quickly leave that 3rd paragraph you have created already. Go and establish a 4th one so that you have 4 paragraphs that the examiner will cite. Now, when you create that 4th paragraph, which is usually about conclusion, right? Quickly conclude it. Then see how you can do a very quick adjustment and finish up that 3rd paragraph. Then quickly go to your paragraph 1 and proofread before that 5 minutes elapses. Please, do you understand this? Remember, in your essay writing, do not bring in contractions. Don't shorten any words. Don't blend 2 words together. Can't, shouldn't, won't, isn't. Don't do these. They will drop your score. Every word you must write should be written in full and independently. Is not. Don't write isn't. Will not. Don't write won't. Cannot. Don't write can't. Don't abbreviate any word. Let every word be written in full. Do not bring in shorthands. Be mindful of the type of words you bring in. IELTS detests bringing in overly or commonly used words, because you are supposed to prove to them that you understand and have good command of the language. And the only way to do that is bringing in advanced words. But in the quest to show off advanced words, try not to constitute ambiguity. Don't bring in ambiguity, words that will have multiple meaning, because examiner may have the understanding of that word to mean something different from what you intended. So at that point, you're losing it. At the same time, try not to bring in turgid words, those high-sounding words, because examiner will not have time to start looking up the meaning on the dictionary or internet. So you want to bring advanced words that are very precise and yet easy to relate with. Please ensure you understand these things. They would help you to achieve an excellent essay. But overall, your spellings matters 100%. Your spellings. No matter how excellent the structure of your letter is, no matter how beautiful your calligraphy is, that's your handwriting, if your spellings are bad, everything you have written will be bad. So your spelling needs to be top-notch. Now, for you to be able to complete your essay within the time allotted for it, that means you must be very fast in writing. If you are a slow writer, don't worry yourself. The time will shut down. It's normal. So, IELTS is not concerned about how beautiful your writing is. It's none of their business. They are not concerned about how horrible your writing is. Don't worry, they will use that against you. But what matters to them is your writing must be legible. It must be something they can read without you coming to tell them this is R, this is A. No. It has to be legible. So you want to work on all of that. And don't forget, you are required to write a minimum of 250 words. So you need to know how to count the words you've written to ensure you are within the requirement. So how do you know how many words you've written? Right? Check the first 3 lines individually. So you check how many words you've written in the first line. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit of, right? So you check. If you have 6 words in the first line, maybe 7 words in the second line, maybe 7 words in third line, or 6 words. So you look for the average. So now when you get an average from the first 3 lines, you now count how many lines you wrote from paragraphs 1 to 3 or paragraphs 1 to 4 and multiply by that average. That would give you the idea about whether or not you've been able to write up to 250 words. Please, do you understand this? All right, so this is how your essay should go. We shall look at paraphrase. And that would help you to also work on your spellings and the type of vocabularies you would use in your essay. All right, so thank you so much. We'll continue shortly.